Well, ladies and gentlemen, wouldn't you know it, just ahead of Newswave going up, this was late last night, early this morning, we had an image get out there online that started to make the rounds pretty quickly because it appears to show our first look at that PlayStation 5 Slim or the PlayStation 5 revision. We still have to see how much smaller it is, I guess, than the current PlayStation 5. But there's been a lot of discussion around this system with the detachable disk drive and some other discussion about how the system actually looks kind of weird. Well, after seeing this image, I tend to agree with them, but we're going to go over that here today, as well as some interesting implications that could follow with this device. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. Well, let's go right to the image. We can see it here, and this is funny because I feel like we've mentioned this many times. We've seen this also play out many times, and that is when a device is in manufacturing, it tends to have different leaks out of forums that would be at least have some knowledge about these things. And in this case, it appears to have come from a Chinese forum, A9VG, or that's kind of the mark that's on the bottom of the image. And I was looking around, and it does appear to have come out of a forum in China. And looking at this image, it's kind of weird looking at first because it doesn't. So from what I'm looking, it doesn't look like an image of the system as in somebody snapped like a picture of it when it was standing on a table or something. This kind of looks like either the side of a box that would have it inside of it, or it would be part of a promotional video, a screenshot, poster, whatever, right? That's kind of what it looks like because it looks almost like a rendering of the system, which in this case, we're still missing a big piece of the puzzle that we'll discuss here. But we've seen this happen many times in manufacturing, so it's one of the reasons I'm leaning towards this being legit, because we saw it with like the Switch Lite. That was a big one where somebody just took an actual picture of the case. Not a lot of people believed it. Turned out, though, it was correct. Also, do you remember with the PS5 in manufacturing, we just caught an image that got out online of them holding the PS5, just like taking a picture with it? And that was one of the ways we were able to kind of scale and measure just how big that system was. That was a bit more formal. This appears to be just kind of a screenshot that got out there without Sony allowing it to necessarily. So the thing I noticed right away, and I'm sure many of you do as well, is this, I don't know, it's like this cutout right here for the shell on the side. And we can see right here, it appears to extend beyond like the black plastic in the middle, right? Which, I mean, the shells on either side kind of wrap around the internal part of the PlayStation 5 where everything's housed. And we've been able to remove the shells and then put new ones on. And it's been a pretty cool thing to have access to, since that means when special edition systems like Spider-Man 2 come out, we don't have to just buy the entire system again. But as people are noting, the shell looks different enough to where there's question if we'd be able to use those same shells from the current model PS5 on this one. I'd like to think we can, but I also wonder what kind of functionality that cutout has, because I think there might be a couple of pieces here. So first, I wonder if this could be kind of a decorative thing where the cutout, instead of it illuminating at the top, which you can kind of see the fins are much shorter now up here. So you're not going to get that same lighting effect necessarily that you have on the current ones, where the light on the PS5, it's actually in here, right, on the black piece, and then it basically shines onto the outer plastics, and that's how you get that effect of it being blue or white or whatever, yellow kind of when it's in rest mode. So there's a chance that maybe they're moving it down here to where this cutout is, and that would be kind of a cool effect. So when it's on its side, it would be closer to what we had with the PS4, where that light bar is kind of in the middle of the system. And when it's standing up, it would, I think, look all right too, just having this nice long glow effect on the side. The other thing, though, with this is the disk drive. So remember, one of the big reports that we've had, and one of the reasons that this has been such an interesting run-up for what you figure would be a very standard, like, slim revision 3 years into a console's life, is that it would have a detachable disk drive, which in turn means that Sony would be able to just sell one SKU and then sell the disk drive separately. That would help a lot in shipping or just figuring out which system they have to send out, right? They just send one and that's it. And they can also advertise it as a new lower price at $400, for example. And the disk drive is seen as an accessory similar to your controllers or what have you. In fact, that's probably where it would be stocked, next to the headset, next to the controller charger, that sort of thing. But here's where I'm a little unsure about this, because we have this split design here for the shell, and I don't really know if we're going to have the disk drive attached to the side of it, because there are also comments right now making the rounds that the disk drive portion is actually internal to the system. So I'm wondering if one of the reasons we would have this split design, say, on the shell, is because you actually remove the lower portion here on either side. And for example, one side, maybe that has access to the NVMe, so you can do your upgradable storage. And then on the other side, you remove it, and there's a slot where you place the disk drive. Maybe it just sits down and then clicks in. And that way you don't have to mess around with like a USB-C cable or trying to slot it on the side just right. And it would also work to not only protect the drive, but make it look a bit more uniform overall, which that's the biggest thing we're missing here, because it's cropped out clearly, is how exactly all of that is going to work, and if it's a thing. Because let's say this comes out and nope, it's just a standard PS5. There's a $500 model, there's an all digital model at $400, and Sony wanted to revise this maybe to cut down on costs inside of the system. They could be moving to a different fabrication, and maybe that will allow them to cut down once again on the copper and aluminum that they would need for the heatsink and other things we're not even necessarily thinking of when it comes to power management or different chips and power supplies and stuff like that. But it does seem like, as weird as the detachable disk drive sounds, that it would actually make sense from a business side. I'm just curious how exactly it's all going to work, and we would need to see basically the other half of this picture to at least get some sort of idea how it would work. Now, because this is kind of getting out there now, and once again, I'm leaning towards this being an actual legitimate image out of China, out of this forum, it seems like we would be getting close to the reveal for this system. And most likely, well, at least what I'm anticipating, is that Sony wouldn't necessarily have this in a PlayStation state of play or a showcase. They might just push this out as a press release. Although I thought they would do that with the Q, their handheld, and they actually announced that in a show. So I guess it could go either way, but I feel like one day we're going to wake up and Sony's going to push a press release on their blog, introducing the system, talking about some of the features with the disk drive, if that is detachable or not, giving us a release date, and then most likely the price point of $400 and then $100 if you want to buy the disk drive on top of that. So interesting stuff, but I'm excited for this system because it looks legitimately different. And while it does look weird, I will say that, I think it will be a lot of fun to do a teardown on it, provided this is what we are going to get here, just to see the functionality of that disk drive and how they've kind of rearranged the insides, and maybe even how they're saving money on some of those components. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below, specifically the leak itself. Do you think this is a thing? Like, are we looking at the top half of the PlayStation Slim revision right now, or is this just a fake rendering somebody made and threw out there to see who would catch on to it? And let me know if you're interested in a device like this with a detachable disk drive. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.